Hello everybody, welcome back to Read and Reread. I am Angelia and it is time for Friday Reads on May 5th. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Let's talk about books and TV and other stuff today. First of all, let's see, I want credit for this t-shirt. I'm wearing a bookish shirt that you can't see and I'm trapped in my chair. Books and tea. That's basically sums up my entire day some days. So I hope you've been having a good week. It's really been nice here. It's very, very humid and it's been that kind of cloudy, gray, tan sky that looks like it's just about to rain, but we're about on day 3 of just about to rain and it really hasn't rained. It's just extremely wet, like 85% humidity. So it also could get extremely loud at any minute. Let me tell you what happened yesterday. So it's a little bit later than when I'm filming this, but yesterday around, I don't know, it was like 11 or 12, all of a sudden there was this incredibly loud sound. It sounded like a plane was crashing in the neighborhood, seriously. And we looked out the window and we did actually see a plane flying really low and then swooping back up. And then we kept hearing, like, it sounded like it was coming back. So I did some extremely fast research to make sure nothing terrible was happening. And I found out that it was the Blue Angels rehearsing for an air show that is taking place this weekend. There's this big, kind of like a fair that's, I think it goes on for like 10 days, like through 2 weekends here, called Buccaneer Days. And anyway, there's an air show during this event and they're practicing. So for hours, these planes swooped in and out right over our house because we live near the bay and the show is out over the bay. And they were doing tricks. They were going upside down and spinning around, but it was so cloudy that you couldn't see them. You just heard all this tremendous roaring. It sounded like the Note monster. And then all of a sudden they'd appear for a second in and out of the clouds. So it was kind of unnerving and it was incredibly loud. All the birds went crazy and the neighbor's cat was hiding behind the trash can. And finally they finished. So I don't know if they're going to practice again today, but if they do, it's probably going to be pretty soon. So I don't know. We'll see hopefully they mapped out their whatever they do. What else did we do this week? We went and we became members of the Texas State Aquarium, which has a really nice public aquarium that you can visit there, and also a giant research and rehabilitation facility that is new on the grounds. They used to have a small one and they made a big one, and they can house up to 1,000 animals that are in need of care. So we went there. It has the best physical setting of any aquarium I've ever gone to because it's right on the bay and it has all indoor and outdoor things to view and look at, and a lot of outdoor seating if you just want to go and sit and eat lunch or whatever. It has a very strong conservancy and rehabilitation program. So that was fun. And now let's see, what else? TV. We finally finished Better Call Saul. So we are completely done and I can read any article I want to about it now. And if you have not watched the show, it's really excellent. And in the final season, there is a small but pivotal role played by Carol Burnett she's excellent in this part. And I think she's 90 years old and she just nails it. So that was really fun. Now we're back to The Wire and we're on season 3. And I guess we're still watching Ted Lasso and it's been kind of up and down this season. My daughter recommended to us Abbott Elementary, but we haven't tried it yet. So let me know if you have enjoyed that show. Okay, let's get on to the books. And my reading discussion is a little bit limited because, well, you'll see as I kind of unfold this. So the first book that I read over the past week, I already talked about at length in my wrap-up video, and that was City Under One Roof by Iris Yamashita. I've already returned it to the library, but I'll put a picture up. I really enjoyed it. It was a really good thriller, mystery. Wasn't anything profound or life-altering, but it was a fun thriller. And I gave it a thriller star. I've talked about my star system before. I don't do Goodreads, so I understand when people talk about a 5-star and a 4-star book, and that actually does give me a little bit of guidance, but I don't do it that way. In my reading journal, I write about each book that I read, and it gets nothing or it gets a star. The stars are the ones that were particularly memorable. Usually I give them as I go, but then in retrospect, sometimes I add a star or subtract a star if I have different thoughts as time has passed, and then I reflect on that book further. Sometimes a book kind of sneaks up and takes a while. Um, and it has to marinate, and then you realize later that it's stayed on your mind, or you've seen discussions about it that added layers, and so it sort of earns a star later. And other things, they kind of went boom, and then later I'm kind of like, and I take this. I don't feel like it's star worthy anymore. But then I have like a special, even more nerdy side category, which is a thriller star, and that's a book that is not like a literary award winner kind of book, but it was really excellent, whiz bang, hotel weekend, thriller ride quality, and they get a thriller star. Now a book could be a thriller and get the other kind of star, and I'm going to stop talking about this because I can just feel everyone glazing over with just the nerdiness of it all. So I'm done. But anyway, City Under One Roof got a thriller star. The next book I read was for the BookTube prize judging, so I can't talk about it. And it was Kaikeyi by, I do that every time. Every time I think I'm going to say it without getting stuck, and then I get stuck. Kaikeyi by Vaishnavi Patel. And it is a retelling of the Ramayana legend, epic from Indian mythology. It's a feminist retelling from the point of view of Kaikeyi, who in the original Sanskrit legend was a villain. She was basically an evil stepmother character who banished the heir to a throne and put her own son in instead. And she instigated this whole journey and all these trials and travails that Rama encountered because she put her son in instead. So the author has reshaped the story, and I cannot tell you any more about it or my thoughts on it until we get to the end of the BookTube prize judging, but I will come back to you and talk to you about this version, Kaikeyi. It was a long and chunky book, so it took several days and I can't talk about it, so that took up a whole lot of what we would normally be discussing right now. Then what I have started that I just began last night was A Room with a View by E.M. Forster for the Forster read along, and it is not this big, as there are 3 novels in this book, and even within it, it has I don't know if you can see this. It has big print, and it doesn't really use all the space on the page. So this is actually not that long of a book. It's shorter than it looks, and I'm really loving it so far. It's a reread. I'm familiar with the plot, having watched the movie again more recently than when I last read this, and I think I've only read it once before. The beginning so far is about a group of British tourists who are at I guess it would be a pension. I don't know. I'm not very Italian. I'm not at all Italian, but they are vacationing in Italy, and the draw of the beauty and the discoveries that there are to be found versus all of their stuffy behavioral constrictions. So early on in this book, Lucy finds herself alone. Her escort of the day has sort of run off on her taking their guidebook, and she has a conversation with Mr. Emerson, who she finds to be a little bit disconcerting because he does not really follow all of the niceties of their class, and so she doesn't really know how to take him. He's passionate and frank even upon first meeting, and he kind of cuts through the crap, and she has been brought up to hold the crap tightly and stand behind it, and it will protect her from strangeness and potentially vulgar men. So when she encounters him in a church, and he's talking about his son having kind of an existential crisis, and she is just not following this conversation too well at all. He says something really beautiful to her, though. He's encouraging her to befriend his son George, and he says to her, and this just totally unnerves her because she doesn't know these people, and he says, um, you are inclined to get muddled, if I may judge from last night. Let yourself go. Pull out from the depths those thoughts that you do not understand and spread them out in the sunlight and know the meaning of them. By understanding George, you may learn to understand yourself. It'll be good for both of you. Okay, this just freaks Lucy out. And she immediately gathers herself and starts to spout little things like, well, maybe your son needs to get a hobby. And Mr. Emerson's sort of disappointed because he can kind of tell there's something more to Lucy than what she's letting out. But I just love that thought about take out your thoughts and lay them in the sunlight and examine them and get to know yourself. So to me, that is a lot of foreshadowing about what will happen to Lucy, but it will not be as easy as just deciding to do it. Those thoughts are going to have to be dragged out bit by bit. So I'm enjoying the book so far. Now, that is really all I have about current reading, but I do have a couple of books that I picked up at the library on the suggestion of viewers, and I resisted going into the new book section and looking through the novels because I have a nice roster of things planned for the next few books. So I didn't want my pretty head to be turned by shiny new books. But I did pick up a couple of things that specifically were recommended that sounded really intriguing to me. So I'm going to share that with you because I do plan to work these in also really now, soon, So the first one is Wake by Rebecca Hall, The Hidden History of Women-Led Slavery. Let me try that again. The Hidden History of Women-Led Slave Revolts. And this was recommended by Michael, who suggested that it would make an interesting companion piece to The Deep by Rivers Solomon that I recently read. And in that book, that was a fantasy about a race of aquatic people who are the descendants of pregnant women who were thrown overboard from slave ships during the Middle Passage. And in this nonfiction book, Rebecca Hall is researching women-led slave revolts, often on those same type of ships, but in actual history. And the fact that this is not an easily accessible history. And the book is in graphic format, and it is both the story of these revolts that happened and also a memoir of Hall's research and her research process, the challenges, and the personal effects of learning these stories. So this sounds really, really interesting and about something that I don't know anything about. So I'm really excited about this filling a hole that I didn't know I had in my history knowledge. And I also love a good tale of a research pursuit. So I'm looking forward to reading this book. And I don't read that many books that are in graphic format, but I do from time to time. And I think the last one I probably read was Genderqueer by Maya Kobebi, which was also very enlightening to me and educated me also about things that I did not know enough about. The other book that I checked out from suggestions was How the Word is Passed by Clint Smith, which coincidentally also has to do with slavery, and the subtitle is A Reckoning with the History of Slavery Across America. Sandy recommended this, and I have seen this also recommended on other people's channels, but I've never read it. And she specifically suggested the audiobook, which is narrated by Clint Smith, but my audio listening skills are pretty much at the level of a 4-year-old at a birthday party. So I don't think I would do the book justice trying to listen to it. But what my plan is to read it gradually, a little bit at a time over however long it takes on the side. And just because it's divided into some different times and episodes in history, I am really interested to read this. And I think, again, it is a story of both the history itself and the author's personal voyage through discovering the history. So I am excited to work both of those into my repertoire. So thanks for those suggestions. I have lots of other books in my TBR that people have suggested, and that it just keeps getting longer and longer, but eventually I will either read them all or I will shuffle off the mortal coil with the job undone, and I will have to haunt the library. Okay, so that is where I'm at. After I finish A Room with a View, I have 3 books in mind. I don't know which one. I'm going to go with mood. I've narrowed it down to the 3 I'm most excited about, so you'll have to wait and see. I'm either going to pick up The Hobbit, Station 11, or Mr. Flood's Last Resort. I also have a lovely haul of books that I have acquired since the last time I did a haul video back in February. And so my next video is going to be a haul where I share all of the books that I have gradually accumulated and that I'm also excited to start fitting in. Anyway, that's what's coming up next. So let me know, what was the highlight of your reading week, or a deathly dud that I should dodge. I hope you have an excellent weekend. We seem to have survived and we have not been dive bombed by the Blue Angels. So have a wonderful day. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.